Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and this is a gaming PC that I've been planning for quite some time now, or rather my girlfriend has been planning for quite some time now. While I've been gaming on the ultra-wide display quite happily, she's been feeling a little bit left out, and while our apartment is a little bit too small for another desk setup, we do have the living room with a 4K TV, so this is going to be her new 4K gaming PC for the living room. And so while the Xbox One X was tempting because it is quite affordable, the lack of a true 4K 60 FPS experience and the lack of upgradability down the line is what really held me back, and it really became apparent that we had to build our own custom system. So I gave her complete freedom over all of the parts that you see here, and she actually built the majority of it herself as well, with me by her side, and I did the custom sleeving, but everything else she did, and I want to show you it because it does look pretty neat. Now, of course, 4K 60 FPS is pretty hard to drive, especially on the GTX 1070, but the titles that she's going to be playing, like Skyrim, Overwatch, and Rocket League mostly, are not that demanding, and the GTX 1070 is going to handle those titles no problem at all at Ultra and 60 FPS. I'm not going to be doing any benchmarks or anything like that because I'm sure you guys know how the GTX 1070 performs at this point in time, seeing as it's been out for several months. But we will be doing some temperature and noise testing at the end. The CPU of choice here is the Ryzen 5 1600 from AMD, undoubtedly one of the most popular processors from last year. It's definitely a little bit overkill since we're only gaming at 60 FPS, but she's also planning to do a little bit of editing work on this as well, so that's where that multi-threaded performance that we all love from the Ryzen processors is going to be put to work. We did overclock this as well to 3.8 GHz at 1.3 volts, and I didn't try anything above that because it really wasn't necessary for its current use. And so she wanted to make this a micro ATX system, something that could fit the Kraken X62 liquid all-in-one cooler, but still look compact as well. So with the case, we're going with the Fractal Design Defined Mini C with the tempered glass. This was one of the most impressive cases released last year in my opinion, and is pretty much one of the best all-round choices for a micro ATX build. The front mounted radiator has a good amount of airflow thanks to the vents on either side. Cable management is pretty much spot on, and we decided to go with the tempered glass edition as well, since a lot of the emphasis on this build, as you guys know by now, is the aesthetics. We wanted to make it look clean. Now, the all-in-one liquid cooler was non-negotiable on her end. The awesome looking pump on the Kraken X62 was one of the main reasons why we went with it. The infinity effect on the pump looks pretty stunning, along with the CAM software integration, which worked flawlessly as well. Although I wish they could have figured out a cleaner solution for routing the pump cables, as they're just in plain sight, and I think routing them underneath the tubes would have looked a lot cleaner. To complement the NZXT RGB theme, she decided to go with the RGB air fans as well, which we've got plugged into the NZXT Hue Plus. And again, the software integration was pretty much flawless here, but the amount of cables that you have to deal with is pretty unacceptable. The Kraken X62, for example, has just a ton of cables coming out of the pump block, which really ruins, that clean aesthetic that the pump is going for. The infinity effect looks awesome, but then when you've got this USB cable coming out of it, and you've got the power cables coming out, it sort of does ruin it a little bit, and it does make cable management a bit of a nightmare. Once it's all running though, everything runs smooth, and the CAM software is definitely a treat to work with. And the ASRock B350M Pro 4 motherboard was also a real treat to work with as well. We had no problems at all overclocking the RAM to 3000 MHz. It's a 16GB kit from Corsair, it's their Vengeance LPX memory, really solid for compatibility, and again 3000 MHz is going to give us a nice boost in gaming. Overclocking the Ryzen processor was no problem at all on this motherboard. We have 9 VRM phases, which is pretty awesome for a micro ATX motherboard. We also have 2 M.2 slots, which we're not using right now, but it is nice to know that we have that room in the future if we want to put one in. And for the storage, we're just going with a 500GB drive from Samsung, their 850 EVO. SSD speeds are fast enough, and 500GB is enough capacity for now. Now, temperatures are pretty good too. At idle, the system is only sitting a few degrees over ambient, which is great. And in IDA 64, we're seeing the CPU level out to around 56 degrees C with an ambient of 20, and the GTX 1070 at full blast is sitting at 78 degrees C. Now, that might sound pretty warm to you guys, but remember that we're running some pretty light titles on this 4K display, and the GTX 1070 is more than powerful enough for that. And since we have VSync enabled on the TV, the GTX 1070 is only sitting around 50 to 60% utilization, and so we see that 78 degrees at full blast drop to really around 55 degrees. I'm pretty happy with the noise levels as well, as that's pretty important for a living room gaming system. You definitely don't want the fans at full blast or anything like that, so this is what it sounds like at idle and at full load as well. And so the biggest drawback from my experience of gaming on a TV is the amount of input lag from the TV itself. Our TV is nothing special. It's a 65-inch 4K model from Samsung with some of their smart TV tech built in, but we were able to overcome the majority of input lag by easily switching to game mode in the settings. Now, this bypasses a lot of the image processing that goes on in the TV to produce a crisper image in return for a more responsive experience. But personally, I didn't notice any difference in the image quality. It's not downscaling or anything like that. It's still 4K 60 FPS, but apparently the quality is reduced a little bit. I personally couldn't tell the difference. With a keyboard and mouse, it definitely still would be noticeable, but with a controller, it definitely is a lot more tolerable, so that's what we're using. And so let me know what you guys think of this system. I'm pretty impressed by it, and my girlfriend is in love with it as well. I'm definitely pretty excited to have it in the lounge room for a 4K gaming system. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more builds like this, and as always guys, I will see you all in the next one.